I am a donor conceived survivor. My name is Steph, and I'm going to be sharing my personal life story here in these videos. You can follow along and connect with me. I'd love to connect with other survivors and donor conceived people and other women who are looking for a voice to speak out. I'm here and I'm ready to share my journey with all of you. I am by no means a perfect person, but I do my best to make healthy choices. And I'm doing my very, very best to be brave and to speak out for other women who have gone through similar situations. But not only that, speak out for other survivors, both men and women, because we need a voice too. And us donor conceived people, we are a unprotected group of people that I hope that by me sharing my personal stories, that it brings peace, healing, and awareness to the important issues that I will be discussing in my videos. So make sure to follow and subscribe. So let's get started. How did I find out I am donor conceived? The simple answer is that I took a 23andMe DNA test and I found out the results. And immediately through opening the app and looking at my results, I connected with two matches. One being my father, which is David, my donor dad at the time, opening the app and figuring out all of this new information. I had no clue I was donor conceived. And I also matched with my half brother, Sam. And at the time, I had no idea that I was donor conceived. So the first reaction I thought to myself was that my mom had been cheating on my dad Peter, who raised me, a minister of the Christians of Evangelical Faith Church. I had thought he was my father my entire life. And so I thought, well, maybe there was a possibility that she had a relationship with a man named David, and Sam could possibly be one of his sons. And so I called up my mom that night and I asked her to explain why Peter wasn't my dad. Why is it that on this 23andMe test, David is showing up as my matched father? And her first reaction was that what I was doing was incredibly disrespectful. She was very angry with me that I took a 23andMe test. And then her next reaction or her next excuse was that she had in vitro. And I explained to my mom, well, if you had in vitro, that means that you took your egg, you took someone else's sperm, made an embryo, and had it inserted into your uterus. Is that what you did, Mom? And she again confirmed, yes, I had in vitro to have you. Along with some other harsh words that she gave me that night because she was very upset that I had taken a 23andMe test. It was a very confusing conversation, to say the least. She also mentioned that I was ungrateful for taking the 23andMe test, that I was ungrateful, and that if she had adopted, that adopted person would be way more grateful than I was behaving in that moment. And of course, I was speaking to her as a calm adult, and I was very confused. So I really didn't have too many emotions. And I did it with the support of my husband sitting next to me. But overall, I was extremely hurt and saddened by the fact that my mom couldn't be honest with me and that she was attacking me for simply wanting to take a DNA test because I have children of my own and I wanted to find out health-wise what my health looked like using the 23andMe DNA health report. And also I wanted to find out my ethnicity so that I could share that with my kids. Being that I had been brought up believing I was 100% Slavic, and then finding out on the 23andMe test that I'm actually 50% Slavic and 50% all of these other things coming from my donor dad, which is really, really cool. I am German and French and Italian, Scottish. There's a whole lot more, but I was so excited to add all these new ethnicities to my life portfolio. So I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But the painful part, of course, was getting to the truth with my parents. It took a few conversations with them for both my mom and my dad to finally admit that it was an IUI, which is artificial insemination. And the only way that I found out or got them to admit that was through hardcore research, by researching, talking to my half brother. And he let me know the doctor's name, the fertility clinic, and the procedure, which were all things, three things that my parents would not tell me. And there was a lot of tears in those conversations with my parents. And it really hurt me to know that they were doing whatever they could to not give me any information about being a donor conceived person after having the results. I laid it out on the table for them, and they still chose to lie and still chose to deny that they knew my entire childhood I was donor conceived. My brother and I, that I grew up with, so I have another half brother who I grew up with. We both share the same bio mom, but he's my older brother, and he was also conceived using donor sperm by the IUI procedure. They also use the IUI procedure, artificial insemination, to have him. So they first paid the clinic to get pregnant with my brother, and they used a different donor sperm to conceive him. And then they went a second time, paid the clinic again for baby number 2 using a different sperm donor. So you would think by this second baby, there's no question as to whether or not your second baby is yours, Peter's, or is it from the fertility clinic? Is it from the doctor's office? After you have the semen injected into the cervix, 2 weeks later, you're going to go back into the fertility clinic and have a blood draw to see if the procedure worked. You paid thousands of dollars for it, so you got to find out. So that made absolutely no sense that my parents were flabbergasted that they had no clue that their first and second could be donor conceived. And that had me searching for answers. And of course, I knew in my heart they were not telling the truth. My entire childhood, both my brother that I grew up with, who is my half brother, but that brother and I grew up together. And since starting middle school, I had heard him asking my dad, Peter, the music minister, if he was his father. And of course, with that, I did the same. Because if my older brother is asking my dad, are you my father? Are you really my dad? Of course, I'm going to do the same thing too. So my brother and I would ask both my parents if we had the same dad. And we had a lot of questions all throughout our childhood. Again, like I said, I remember the first time I asked was in middle school, and they always denied. Both of my parents always denied and said, no, Peter is your dad. There's no question about it. Nothing to question. Stop asking. And that was that. So, of course, I was shocked at the age of 32 to find out that I'm a donor conceived person, and I had a lot of questions that needed answering, and my parents were not going to answer them for me. They also told me that I was not allowed, or they discouraged, in their own words, to put anything on social media that would embarrass them, such as me putting my DNA results on Facebook, so that my family and friends could see that, hey, I took this test and check out my ethnicities. But I hadn't stated that Peter wasn't my dad. I just kind of let it go and let people assume, and that was fine for me. I shouldn't be ashamed of my origins. I am not ashamed that I'm donor conceived. And I found it very disrespectful that my parents expected me to keep it a secret. That was out of the question. It took me 2 years after finding out that I was that I'm a donor conceived person through the 23andMe test. I finally came out after 2 years, and now here I am spreading awareness to these important issues such as donor conception. Donor conceived people we need rights. We need to be protected. I am not only donor conceived, again, I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I will have to live with PTSD for the rest of my life. But again, by doing this, I'm using this as a form of therapy, but also to inspire other women, victims, survivors, donor conceived people to speak up and use your voice. We need to be protected. We need laws to protect donor conceived people and from this happening in the future. So I hope that by you guys following, subscribing, commenting in the comment section, ask questions. I want to get a conversation going, and let's talk about these important issues together. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in any of my videos, go ahead and send me a message or drop a comment. But yeah, I will go into more in-depth about my life story in my next videos that I'm so excited about. So stay tuned, everyone. It's going to be a good one. I know the fear.